certainly OQTA is one of our key partners from a tourism perspective, but I suppose the message from today is that OQTA is just one of the parties that are involved in tourism. It's everyone's business to be involved in tourism, and we can't just rely on OQTA. Council needs to have our own vision and investment in tourism, as does each and every business that's here today, and also businesses that are in the wider community. So what I thought I would do now is that we've got quite a tight time frame, so I'll just give you a snapshot of how the rest of the day is going to run and what my goals are for today. So obviously from a communication and engagement perspective, I think we've ticked one goal off, is that we've got 70 or 80 people here today willing to have a conversation about improving tourism, improving small business in our region, and understanding everyone's responsibility. So I think we're part the way forward in the commitment that we've got from the community to come today. And certainly from an engagement point of view, I want to make sure that today's event it's just one step in an ongoing journey. So my vision is that we should be having 3 or 4 of these events a year. It shouldn't be me coming up with what the topics are. It should be coming from the wider business community in terms of what content they want in these sessions, who they want to come, but we need to be on a bit of a journey to have these things happening regularly. So again, this is a good step forward in terms of engagement. Networking, well, it was great that, you know, a lot of people arrived early and I could see people chatting, and like Councillor Gray has extended an invitation to come over to the races. I think a key part of being successful in business is networking with other local business people, sharing ideas, sharing you know, tough times, stories and so on. And I know we had our, there was a recharge day down at Alpha for you know, some of the graziers, and I kind of see this is kind of the same thing for small business people. It's good to get together and talk about the tough times. It's also good to share good ideas and things that are going well in your business. And certainly since I've been here, getting around talking to business people, I've heard a lot of stories about how tough people are doing it, and I certainly acknowledge it is tough, and we are being hit from a whole range of different directions at the moment. I've also spoken to people that are going okay, and I've also spoken to people that are going really well. So, you know, I think that's something we've got to remember, is that even when the market's tough, if we plan and we connect with the right people and we take the right steps, every business can do okay, but we've just got to be committed to what that process is and work through the process as part of an ongoing journey. Discover the hidden potential of our region. So this is what I've personally engaged Linda Haley for. So, and I hope I'm not putting too much expectation on Linda, but I've worked with Linda before, and I suppose I want to be upfront. And you know, we've all been to seminars like this, we've all worked with consultants, and the one thing that I didn't want to do is we sign up to another consultant who comes out, charges us $20,000, writes a report, they fly back to Sydney and we never see them again. So what I can guarantee you is that Linda's style is that she immerses herself in our region. She, I suppose, gets down and gets dirty and looks around the region and tries to uncover what are the opportunities. And it's not just a come out once and she's got a magic wand and she's going to fix everything. We know that that just can't happen. But again, I keep on using the word journey. And you know, I've worked with Linda before over a 12 or 18 month period where she's done some uncovery and explorative work to start with, and then come back with some suggestions. The business people have then put those suggestions into place. We've then been able to track over a period of time what those changes have done to the individual business and the community. And that's sort of the process that I'm hoping we're starting here today with Linda. Takeaway action points specific to your business. So really, you know, what I'm hoping is from today's presentation, whether it be from something that Peter might have just said, something that I say, or most likely something that Linda says, everyone's got notepads on their tables. Please feel free to write down if it's 1, 2 or 3 things that really resonate with you and you think, well, come Monday when I go back to my job or my business, I'm going to have a go at looking at things differently or changing something or doing something different. you know, I've been to a lot of conferences myself, and there's nothing worse than you go and sit there and it all sounds great, then you get back to work and it's so busy, you actually forget everything you just learned. So I really want to make sure that people take the time to write down a couple of key things. If you walked out with 3 things today that you can successfully start implementing next week, it's a huge success when we multiply that out across the 60 or 70 businesses or business people that are here today. In terms of our time frame, we are going to be cut short. We have a question and answers session at the end. What I've also done to make sure, because I've heard that people have lots of different questions, on your seat in front of you there'll be a ask a question sheet, that if it's a question that doesn't get answered or something that you maybe don't want to ask in public, feel free to fill that out and give that to one of the Boxall Regional Council staff, and I guarantee that we'll come back to you personally on that. We also have a whiteboard up the back there. If anyone's got any just general suggestions, random suggestions, anything you feel that you want to put forward from a tourism and small business perspective at morning tea or before you go, please go up and just write it down. It can be anonymous. If it's a suggestion, all suggestions are good suggestions. So please, if there's something you think that we should be doing as a region, you know, please put it up there for us to consider it. And then again, I suppose I come back to, it's the start of a journey. There's no magic wand to improve things. It takes everyone's commitment and it takes everyone's understanding that we all play a role in improving the economic success of the region. And when I say we all play a part, Council's certainly got a major part to play. Each individual has a major part to play, and we have partners like OQTA, the state government, a whole range of different people that all have to come together and all have to contribute for it to be a success. So that's pretty much my goals of today. What I'm going to talk about is, I'm going to talk a little bit about communication, consultation, evolution and change. Some of these things are more my thoughts and things that I've seen in business, and then I'll move on to covering some of Council's strategic vision, which is Council and the community, in terms of the key things that came out of our Approaching 2030 document that everyone also has on their tables in front of them. And I suppose that document is the community was consulted, and it's a visionary document of what are we aiming up for in terms of when we get to 2030, where do we want to be? So what we've now got to do is, I suppose, take a step back and say that's where we want to be, how are we going to get there? So today is a key point in that journey, and it's one of the first steps forward in terms of engaging with the business community and getting everyone on board going in the same direction. So what I'd like to start with is, if I can just ask, who is here today who's actually has a business currently, numbers wise? Okay. Does your business rely on tourism? Yep, so that's almost everyone. Yep, well that's great, and that's what, I suppose, what Peter was saying earlier about the battery sales, that, you know, that's good that everyone understands their connection to the tourism industry regardless of what business they're in. Who's here who's thinking about getting into business? Okay, so we've got a couple. Who's got a good business idea but isn't prepared to go into business? We've got a couple. So we've got a good cross section of people, and I suppose from a networking perspective, one of the things that we're hoping to do is that you know, we've got within our region, we do have some really successful businesses, and we have some people that have been through the good times, the bad times, the tough times. You know, we want to connect people, and I think that's one part of Council's role, is to really be an enabler in terms of helping people if they are in business or if they're looking to get into business. Sometimes I think Council, you know, people expect that Council can, I don't know, give money or cheap rent or whatever it is, and sure, Council may be able to consider those things, but the biggest thing that's out there that's untapped is tapping into each other, and I think that's something really important that we need to take on board, that if there's people that are thinking about getting into business, they need to go and have a chat to someone who's been in business locally for 10 years or 20 years who's going to help them on that journey. And I suppose when I say one of the benefits coming out of today's get-together is that it's a networking opportunity, that's something that we should be doing a lot more often. So I suppose that's one of the priorities that I'd like to see come out of today. So in terms of council, and another reason for holding this event today is that I suppose it's a critical time right now. As I say, I've been around, I've spoken to a lot of business people, I've heard how tough things are. We've got a critical time right now in terms of, there's a lot of people that are just hanging in there in terms of trying to survive. We've got the upcoming tourism season next year. We've got a number of different council tourism assets that are hopefully going to make a huge change to our business and our overall region. So between our Boxall Recreational Park and our Freedom Parks that are going to be either upgraded or built in Jericho, Aramac and Muttaburra, what we're hoping to do over the next 12 months is trap people more within our region. We're looking to pull all of our tourism assets together into one trail. And I suppose going on again what Peter was saying, there's new markets out there where people might only want to come for a week and they want to stay in 3 different places over a week. Well, what we're hoping is that our region and our trail that starts in Alpha and finishes in Muttaburra, that goes through our 5 towns, that has freedom parks, other attractions like the Sculpture Trail, the Boxall Recreational Park, we're hoping to position ourselves as the #1 place to go in central Western Queensland. So I suppose what we really need to do as the next step is have business, local business, tourism product, also just normal businesses raring and ready to go and in the right mindset. If we've potentially got another 250 to 500 people per night in our region, it's a massive opportunity. So it's about everyone understanding what the opportunities are and everyone working together to make sure that we can capitalise on what's coming our way. In terms of the bigger picture and why we need to change and evolve, there's a number of things that I've been thinking about, and some of these are a little bit random and left field, but I think they're relevant to where we are right now. And I think if you think back to things that we might have seen in movies over the last 10, 20, 30, 40 years, depends how old you are, and how quickly things become reality. So I was just thinking last night, some of the things I recall as a kid, I was watching Maxwell Smart on his shoe phone. And you think back then, who would ever have a mobile phone that you can walk around with, let alone a shoe phone? And then you'd see things like James Bond had a phone watch. He had a car that became a plane. Now we've got driverless cars coming. We've got, in America, for example, fast food restaurants are using drones to deliver fast food. You've got video calling on your mobile phone. And I think the one that's really bizarre is like face recognition on your mobile phone or your finger recognition, because I used to see that on like sci-fi movies where, they'd be breaking in somewhere and they'd crack the code and whatever. So I suppose what I'm saying is that technology is moving really quick. And what we've got to embrace is that that's actually really good for all of us. That things are moving so quick and there's so many opportunities and there's so many things that we can grasp and use to our advantage. So, a lot of people think that our location is a disadvantage. I suppose I'm using these technology examples to show that if we really think long and hard, our location isn't a problem and it isn't a challenge if we can come up with the right products and the right way to market ourselves. There's a couple of things I want you to consider, and I stole this from someone else because it really hit home with me. So does anyone know what those 2 logos are? Airbnb and Uber. So when you think about it in terms of society, like the things that we were taught when we were growing up is that you never hop in a stranger's car. The other thing we were taught was you would never go to a stranger's house. Now we've got 2 of the biggest corporations in the world operating by people going in strange cars and staying in strange houses. So why I'm using this as an example is that the consumer's mindset has greatly changed as to what it used to be. So some of the quick stats are, in terms of Uber, so as a business, it's worth $50 billion. Now, Uber doesn't own a single car. It's a taxi business, but it doesn't own a car. It's worth $50 billion, and there's 50 million people ride in an Uber every month. So that's mind-blowing. In terms of Airbnb, it's worth $24 billion. 100 million room nights per year are booked through Airbnb. So that equates to 273,000 rooms somewhere around the world. Every night is someone staying in someone else's house. So what it's telling us is that consumers, they don't want things as they traditionally were. So if we think, for example, that if we want to attract more tourists, we need someone to come along and spend $20 million and build a new motel to house them, well, maybe we don't. Maybe that's not what consumers want these days. Maybe we need to come up with some sort of a hybrid model. But what I do know from the investigation that I've done and what I've seen, and it's being driven by companies like this, and it doesn't matter whether you're in Barcaldine or Brisbane or Berlin or Belgium or wherever you want to be, consumers' way of dealing with business has drastically changed. So we can either say we're not going to be affected by it, or we can embrace it, and we can consider the new way forward for business is thinking about how we tap into technology, how we tap into different types of consumers, and I think it's really important to consider, you know, when we talk about the tourist market, I hear all the time about, you know, grey nomads, and then it's interesting to hear from Peter that we've got this emerging family market. So, you know, there's all these separate subsections within the overall market. So how do we communicate with them? What are they looking for? You know, do they want to stay in traditional campgrounds? Do they want to stay in freedom parks, motels? Do they want 5-star accommodation? I don't know, but what I do know is that consumers now are totally different to what they were last year, 10 years ago, and next year they're going to be totally different again. So the other thing, and Linda's going to touch on it, is that there's rural, remote and regional communities all over Australia that are all in the same boat. They're all challenged. They've all got major problems. There's some of them that have been very advanced and have made changes and they've survived. There's been others that have done nothing and they've failed, and they're in major problems right now. The thing that I know from the research that I've done and talking to people, there's some consistent things around those communities. So the remote, rural and regional communities that are thriving, they've drawn a line in the sand. They've all pulled together. They know what their responsibility is. They know what the local government's responsibility is, the state government's responsibility is, and they've got on with the job and they've made it happen. And I suppose that's at the positive side. The ones on the negative side, they've continued to blame everyone. They say it's everyone else's problem. Someone else needs to fix it. Someone's going to come with a magic wand, and they've failed. So I suppose what we need to choose is, where do we want to be in that spectrum? We've got a lot of good things happening in the region. We've got a lot of good people in the region, and we've now got this vision of approaching 2030 as a council in terms of what is our direction and where are we going. What I'm hoping is now it's a great opportunity for everyone to get on board and play their role in terms of where we're going as a region and where we're going as individual communities. So what I'd like to do is move on to our approaching 2030 document and just go through a couple of the key areas that came out of that document. So you're welcome to go through it on your desk or on your table, or you can look up at the screen here. So just remembering that this document is a economic and community development strategy. It's aimed to be visionary. It's had community consultation. There were a number of sessions held. People also given the opportunity to write in. Council has we have taken this document very seriously. Council has spent a large amount of time reviewing the document, making changes to get to the point where we are now. So it's a joint document in terms of where the community is going towards 2030. The important things to note are the overall vision and goals. So in 2030, the Barcaldine region will be prosperous and resilient, shaped and strengthened by a growing economy, collaborative action. The outlook is bright for future generations. So that's a great statement that's been pulled together in terms of talking to the wider community, the business community and council itself. The community-led vision has 6 distinct pillars and 6 areas that everything that we do needs to align under these pillars. So we'll just go through those and each of their goals, because this is really important in terms of where we're heading. So the first one, which is the foundational goal, which underpins everything that we do as council, and that is unleashing potential. So from the consultation, it was given that there's a spectacular culture of innovation and entrepreneurship in the region, where local talent is nurtured and empowered and ideas are turned into reality. So in consulting, that's where everyone wants to see us be in terms of 2030. So that's unleashing potential. Dynamic industries. The region has a diverse economy that's reflective of evolved traditional industries and new thriving industries. Local talent has a range of employment opportunities to choose from, and the rate of sustainable new business growth is at an all-time high. And I think what you've got to remember is, council, we want words in there like sustainable, because it's no use getting 20 businesses come to town if that puts out of business another 10 businesses. So it's about being sustainable for the whole region and the whole community. The third goal is real outback. So each of our communities is recognised as its own destination. The region is known for its authentic and quintessential Australian outback experience. Now that aligns 100% with what Peter's saying. That aligns 100% with what I mentioned earlier about people using Airbnb and Uber, because they don't want traditional. They want real experiences. They want to deal with real people. They want to have real stories, and that's our #1 unsold asset. Growing population. The population has progressively grown in each of our communities. There's a steady stream of inward migration because of lifestyle, strong community spirit and economic opportunities. The next pillar is thriving towns. Each town is thriving and is known for their unique character. Now that's something that Linda's going to speak more about just from her 2 days here, with fresh eyes in terms of the hidden potentials and the things that are there that we're not even tapping into, that aren't going to cost us much to change how we market things or change how we say things or link things together. Local facilities are well used for a variety of purposes. Our local clubs and community groups are growing. The region is a living demonstration of how community spirit, passion and collaboration can revitalise and drive well-being in even the most remote communities. Agile Council. So the region has access to catalytic infrastructure. So catalytic infrastructure is not just your basic sewage treatment plants and those sorts of things, but it's infrastructure that's going to bring other benefits with it economically and also to the region. So it's not just the standard things we have to have like roads, water and sewage. Its people and community initiatives have ensured the region has the leadership capabilities and financial sustainability required to safeguard a flourishing future for generations to come. So that's the 6 pillars in terms of the journey that our region is going on to 2030. What we've got to work on now is there's a big journey between now and then, and there's a lot of individual things that have to happen and be undertaken by a lot of different individuals to achieve those goals. And I suppose the first step is communicating and making sure that everyone is on board with where we're going, and the second step is everyone committing to what their individual part is. So you'll see, and I'm not going to go through each of these in detail, I'll just highlight a couple of them, but for each of the goals, we've now gone through and defined what the objectives are, what the rationale is, and what the signature projects are for each individual goal. So for example, the first one, which is unleashing potential. A number of the people here I know are in our Clean Growth Choices program. That's one of the signature things that's coming in under our unleashing potential. So that's a project that's already underway. There's a number of other examples there, things that we're considering doing, which is a tertiary education / training hub, expos and roadshows to encourage people to understand the employment opportunities within the region, so we don't have this loss of people going to, they finish school or they think they have to go somewhere else for employment, but really trying to promote the community and what's actually here. And developing a future skills strategy. So we've obviously got, in the future we're going to have skill shortages, so we want to be one step ahead, and we want to start upskilling people now to combat. If we've got, for example, in council, if we've got a lot of older workers that are highly skilled and we know they're going to be retiring in the next 5 to 10 years, well, we need to start now training and educating people to fill those roles. Dynamic industries, business innovation and accelerator program. So that's something that has been proposed, and I suppose that's something that we might choose to have a whole forum topic on. How can council better facilitate to help business grow and accelerate? Now, as I mentioned before, council's role is certainly not to fund local business, but council's role is certainly to enable and help local business prosper. It could also be to help people that might have home-based businesses at the moment. How do we encourage them to open their first shop in the main street? So there's a whole range of different things that we're looking at. Investment attraction, that's certainly something that is high on our priority in terms of, I mentioned before about 5-star accommodation. There might be a calling for a certain group of the market that want to come and have luxury accommodation. So it could be finding an accommodation provider who wants to come and build, I don't know, 6 5-star luxury units. But they're all things that we really have to consider. The real outback, I think that's fairly self-explanatory. I know we've got a lot of good things already happening in that space, but I suppose it's bringing it all together and trying to encourage. Again, I refer to what Peter Homan said about developing product, understanding what our advantage is that we do have, the real outback offering, and putting product together and then taking it to market. Growing population, in terms of livability, council ourselves have just launched a new council website, and part of the thing that we're doing is that we want people to understand the benefits of living here, working here, staying here and exploring here. So we're really going on a path of promoting the livability of the region. I know, whether you are pro-mining or anti-mining, there's a number of coal mines that are relatively close to our region. Who says that people working in the mines all want to live on the coast? There's probably a great opportunity to attract some of those families to come and live in our region because they like what we have out here. So it's about understanding what our sales pitch is in terms of livability, and then taking it to the market and trying to attract more people to come in our region. The other thing we talk about for population growth strategy, for everyone's benefit, is that we're not talking thousands and thousands of people. Our communities couldn't handle if we got thousands and thousands of people. So it's about having the right sustainability and understanding the right number of people that we need, that we've got housing for, that we've got facilities for, and that the businesses can deal with. Thriving towns. Town pride and functional facilities. So as I mentioned earlier, we've got a number of council facilities that will be coming online in the next 12 to 18 months. One's our Boxall Recreational Park. I know a lot of people have, when I first arrived, a lot of people called it the water park. I think it's understanding that when council makes decisions, the decisions are made around that it's got to be facilities that all of the community can use. And I suppose the rec park is a good example that it's not just a ski park. It'll hopefully have a surf club. It can have triathlon, it can have stand-up paddle boards, it can have a whole range of different activities, and even better, hopefully every second weekend there can be some sort of a competition, whether it's rowing or whatever it might be, which will bring people to town. So council is certainly putting a lot of thought and planning into providing functional facilities that not only benefit our residents but also attract tourism to our region. And being an agile council. So I suppose number one is obviously being open and transparent. I'm certainly, my philosophy has been, since I've been here for the last 6 months, is to try and drastically improve communication. So we've been doing that internally with our own workforce. We've brought all of our workforce in here, had 170 of them to share the vision of where council's going. We've been going out and trying to talk to our workforce more. In terms of the community, we've continued our forums, which we've had recently, and today, I suppose, is a good example of the way that we want things to go forward in terms of communication and engagement, that we can get everyone together and we can share our direction of where we're going. So again, there's a lot more work that can be done, but we're certainly heading in the right direction and have some good examples over the last few months of where we're going. So that's a bit of a snapshot of, from a strategic perspective, where council and community have decided we're heading for 2030. What I'd like to do now is introduce and hand over to Linda, and Linda will start her presentation, which is discovering the hidden potential of our region. And what I'd like you to do, like I said at the start, please, if there's something that Linda says that you think, oh, that's worth considering, please write it down and consider when you get to work next week, is it something that you could do? And also in the back of your mind, while you're hearing Linda's initial, from her snapshot of the region the last couple of days, please keep in the back of your mind where we're going as a region and where we've agreed by 2030 we're heading to kind of have a bit of a rough plan about what's your part that you can play in getting us to where we need to in 2030. So thank you very much for coming along. I will be around after the presentation and also at the races for any other one-on-one questions, suggestions or feedback. If you've got any ideas about other events we should do or be involved in for the business community, please grab me and have a chat. But at this stage, I'd like to hand over to Linda.